President Dennis Schimmelbecker.
Present.
Vice President Russell Wolford.
Present.
Director Byron Glennon.
Here.
Director Olaf Lansberg.
Here.
Director Ed McKay.
Present. Would you all stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Mr. McKay,
Second.
second by Mr. Williford. All in favor?
I'd like to make an amendment to that. With respect to CC1, it should be noted that there is a related party. And I'd like to have CC4, the third quarter treasury report, taken out and put it as an action item rather than a consent agenda.
So, Mr. Smith, is that a related party on CC1?
Yes, sir.
Yes. There is? Okay. It wasn't annotated. And any objections to moving CC4 to an action? It's just a report, there's no action to be taken, is there?
It's a discussion item.
Just put it to a discussion item in the presentation, so that's fine. In PR2.
All right, we'll move to CC4. All right. Board Secretary.
This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the board on any item not on the agenda regarding district business. State law prohibits the district from taking any action on items not on the agenda unless authorized under section 54954.2 sub E of the Government Code, and your matter may be referred to the general manager. An individual may also address the board on any agenda item at the time the matter is discussed and prior to board consideration or action. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. Your time will start when you approach the podium, and you will be given a 30-second warning before your time expires. If you choose to ask a question during this time, any response by the board will not extend your time. Questions may be referred to the general manager to be answered at a later time after the meeting. In order to allow for a smooth and orderly meeting and allow each speaker the ability to address the board, disruptions from the audience will not be tolerated, and you could be asked to leave. We appreciate your cooperation in this democratic process.
Thank you. We're going to return to the approval of the agenda because we had a first and a second, and we had a modification. We need a second for the modification.
I think the second would be the motion.
I'll second it. You amend the
Second.
motion.
The amendment motion. Seconded by Mr. Williford. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to public comments. Do we have anybody in the public who'd like to come up and make any statements on non-agenda items? All right, with nobody responding, we'll move on to minutes. M1, approve the April 3rd, 2018 regular board meeting. Can I have a motion?
I'll move on CC.
No, M1.
And one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll move.
Moved by Mr. McKay. Have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lansberg. Any comments from the public? Any comments from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, consent calendar. Look for them, we'll start with CC1. We have a related party. We'll,
I'll recuse myself. I'm the related party. Carl's Hardware is owned by my brother and sister-in-law, so I'll step that way. Say that.
all right, can I get a motion on CC1?
So move.
Moved by Mr. McKay. And a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Williford. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous with Director Lansberg abstaining.
Thank you. Mr. Lansberg.
I've had recused.
Recused.
He recused. All right, can I get a motion for CC2, CC3, and CC5?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. McKay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lansgard. Any comments from the public?
Just saying, did you pull CC4?
CC4 has been,
It's now PR2.
Its number shouldn't change, it should be identified as agendized, but it is just being taken up under presentations.
Okay.
It's still CC4.
Okay.
all right. All those in favor for CC2, CC2, 3, and CC5?
Aye.
Unanimous? All right. We will go back to CC4, third quarter treasurer report. Any,
I just had some questions for the treasurer. The third quarter refers, and mostly for the audience, with respect to that, refers to the January through March of this year. And also, I guess we've already approved the reserves. But one of the questions I had is that way back in October, it appeared that we're doing fairly well as far as getting our reserves up to where they need to be. And we have a rate increase scheduled for July 1st, 2018. Have you looked at that, whether or not we can at least forego the rate increase on July 1st, 2018 because of the improvement in both the reserves and the balances, for example, have gone up by $1 million?
I would have to say, Allison, because that's going into this discussion of what we should do with rates, and that's not agendized.
Well, like you said, it should be on the next agenda then. But in the meantime, what I'd like to point out, it says the district balances went up from $12 million by $1 million. That's quite a bit, would you say? It's a good improvement.
I would advise the board to use the three reports in the consent calendar in conjunction with one another and not look at them in a silo. The reason that they're presented together is because while on the one hand, the investment balances have gone up and the reserves are beginning to stabilize, what you'll see in the cash report between February and March is a significant decrease in our operating accounts. It's because we're basically moving money from the checking account to the saving account. So while the reserves are being significantly strengthened on a month-by-month basis, the operating cash that we have available is being leveraged more carefully on a month-to-month basis so that we can stabilize the reserves in the long term. That said, to more further answer your original question, we won't get too far into the rate stuff, but the rates are what support the operations of the district. So that would want to be, we would want to look at that in totality and not in a silo.
And I think that's important, but certainly the first quarter is January, February, and March. And
It's a third fiscal quarter.
Fiscal.
and then in terms of our water usage, in other words, people using more than the 3 units that they're otherwise allocated in their fee, that's when they use the least amount of water. Right? That's the least amount of water we pump is between January 1st and March 31st of any quarter. Is that right?
I think it's December, January, February.
Well, that's not a quarter though.
We don't
The
calculate
district
water
goes
usage by
middle of year to middle of year.
fiscal
not
quarters.
January,
We do it by what's
Well, certainly
actual.
those 3 months I would expect to be the lowest, but if you took the quarter that has 2 out of the 3 lowest months, then it will be January and February, the other month being December, am I right?
The usage revenues should not be attached to any of these conversations because a majority of those things are fixed costs, which we catch regardless of usage.
But in regards to
And
usage,
they would not make a significant nor conversation-worthy difference.
So why don't we put a discussion item on for next time, and we can talk about rates and the ins and outs and the budgets, and we can have a more lengthy discussion on the rates and the finance.
and just in general, when it comes to rates, we have to have a 218 hearing if we want to raise them, But if we want to lower them or have them maintain where they're at, we don't have to have any special 218 hearing, is that correct?
That is correct.
Any other comments for CC4?
And I might want to add to that, we established the reserve counts with a goal, and that's what the rates are based on. And even though they're improving, they're not at the goal that we
Right,
set.
and we won't talk about rates, but there was a graph, it's a 5-year plan and not a 1/4 plan. And so you have to look at it, like he said, the totality of why we did what we did. And we'll bring that all back to you with the same graphs and the same accounting to show you why it's going on the way it is.
Director Lanscott, if you'd like to have a separate conversation, my door's always open. You can come in and we'll talk about it.
I know, I always forget until I get here.
That's all right, that's all right. Come on in anytime.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments or questions for CC4? Can I get a motion to approve CC? Moved by Mr. McKay,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Glennon. Any comments from the public? Call for the vote, all those in favor? Aye. Unanimous? All right, we're gonna move on to presentations, PR1.
As specifically requested, AV Groundwater Adjudication for Dummies. That's what the board asked for, so.
Are we
Oh, by the way,
gonna produce these and charge the community to get a copy of it?
Well, can I get a copy of the first
I
edition?
found one for the iPhone too, Byron, if you wanted, because you were saying about that, yeah, they got that. Right, it was for seniors, iPhone for seniors.
Can I get a first edition signed by the author?
I don't know about that, so, and I changed it by 20%, so that means there's no copyright. Okay, so, and this is for the dummy version, right? So if I repeat things that you guys already know, it's the totality of this. Okay, so, out here, Rosamond and this whole valley, there are, for the most part, 2 sources of water. There's groundwater that we pump from the ground, we produce, and then there's the state water project water. Okay? So, back in October 29, 1999, there was a lawsuit filed that said some people are overdrafting. And that was done by the farmers, and then another farmer, and then, I mean, we could have a presentation like this that goes on for a couple hours to get all the details. It was a lot of convolution back and forth. Then they sued all the public water suppliers. They all joined together, and that's been going on. It was finally signed on December 23rd of 2015. And what that did, December 23rd?
The settlement was signed.
The settlement was signed, correct. And that's what decided, there was scientific data, and you can see the binder in my office is about this thick, and they decided where the basin was, they drew the basin, they said, decided how much everybody can pump, what they can't pump, and in all actuality, what it did was, it's all coming out of the same bathtub or same cup. Everybody's pumping from the same water source, okay? And everybody's controlled. And this year is the first year that we have to ramp down to what they said they could do. I can go over the numbers with you, how they calculated, but basically, let's talk about the precipitation. So this is a sort of a standard illustration of an aquifer. People have asked me that before, like, what's an aquifer? Well, you have cracks and rocks, and you have gravel, and you have sand, and you have clay sediments, and the water precipitates into the ground, it drains down, either you're watering crops or the rain comes down, the rivers come down, and the water goes into the ground, into that soil. So then what we do is, it goes into the ground and we pump it back out. So what they said is, how much is going in, how much is coming out. Some of the water is imported. So we bring water from the State Water Project and it waters crops, and some of that water goes back into the ground. So they calculated that. The first one was what naturally occurs, and that's called the native safe yield. They calculated it as 82,300 acre-feet a year. That's what naturally, with rain, you know, you water your lawn, we give people, you know, water, Little Rock gives them water, it goes back into the ground. Then they said because of the imported water, it adds a little bit to the mix, because we're importing it. So with the imported, the safe yield was 110 acre-feet a year. Now what they did is they said, okay, this is how much water we have. If we draw out more water than goes back in, we're overdrafting. So that overdrafting is what was happening. All the wells were going down, and they were calculating we're extracting more. So they said to everybody in this adjudication, everybody has a limit. And they calculated in different ways, and we actually got the short end of the stick, because when they calculated, they were calculating from 1999 when the lawsuit started till 2004. They took the lowest year possible, and that was the percentage of the total of the public works suppliers, and we got. So they took all the public works suppliers, put them in one group, added out how much they pumped in that time, did a percentage of that, and then they said, well, you're only going to get 12,400 acre feet, public works. Now you have to divide it up by the percentages that you were given. At that time, RCSD was buying a lot of state water project water. And I know John Houghton and some of the other people in public works were saying, why aren't we drilling wells and making it cheaper than buying public water suppliers? So that's what we did. What the other ones did, we started pumping, but that was too late. So we got the short end. So this is our ramp down period. It starts in 2018. We start with 2,990.78. That's averaging our pumping from 2011, 2012. As you know, that's still up in the air. That's going back to the Watermaster. In fact, there's still some controversy. City of Los Angeles just did another memo trashing us, basically, and saying we're calculating it wrong again. And so it's going to go back to the Watermaster next week, and we'll see what happens. But these are the numbers that I'm calculating as of now. So every year, you basically take the delta. You take what we start with, subtract what we end with, divide by 6, and that comes out to 431.086 acre feet a year. So we have to subtract that every single year. So you can see, this year we have to do 2559.72, and this year we were
2412.
2412.
Right in there.
So that's going to be fine this year. Next year, we'll be at 212866. That's lower. That's lower than what we need. But there's other water involved, and that's where it gets really complicated. So water categories. We have what's called, and you'll hear this, production rights. That's what's actually given on these exhibits. Exhibit 3 is the public water suppliers. If you have the whole document, you turn to Exhibit 3, it has us listed. It says Rosamond Community Services District, 404.42 is our rights. We purchase property in LA County, as you know. We're also on Exhibit 4 now, and we have 150 acre feet. That's not going to be in the calculation of our ramp down. Our ramp down is basically our start, our end, and we get that much water every year. So it's juggling these types of water. Like I showed you the glass with all the straws. It's the same water coming out of the ground, but the molecules are going to be called something different. And depending on what you write down, what you pumped, and what you didn't pump, depends on whether you pay a lot more money or you can get by and save water. So the other category is carryover water. If we do not produce our production right, we get to carry that over into the next year. But we have to produce all our production right before we can use that carryover. So every year, say we only pump 400 acre feet and we have 4 acre feet next year. Next year, we have to pump all 404 acre feet before we can pump the 4 acre feet. That 4 acre feet stays in the ground and the clock starts ticking every year. So that 4 acre feet would go every year until it gets to the 10th year, and then we put in for a storage agreement, and now it's considered stored water, but different than our water bank water. Because if it's in the ground already, we don't lose 10%, we don't lose evaporation, and water bank water, we don't pay an assessment fee until we pump it. The carryover water, we've already paid the assessment fee on. So now there's water bank water that's stored. That's water that was imported. It comes into the valley, it's spread on our water bank, it goes in, subtract 10% by CEQA, what they decided, and evaporation, depending on when the evaporation was, it could be anywhere from 1% in the wintertime to 4 or 5% in the summertime. Now we get what's left over. We have about 3,700 acre feet in the ground right now. We don't get charged on that until we pump it and extract that. Now we don't want to extract that right now because that's a little bit more expensive. We can use other water, it's better. That stays in the ground until we extract it. When we do extract it, we pay assessment. But when we extract it, that water was imported water. So now we get what's called return flows. We get 39% of whatever we pump or brought in, we get 39%. So when we pump an acre foot we get credit for that. It spreads back on the ground. Remember, it's imported, so water's going back in the ground that wasn't normally here. So we get, they said, well, you get 39% of that. We have Federal Reserve water. In the judgment, the feds got 7,600 acre-feet of water. They don't use that much. Within the settlement and the wheeling and the dealing, they said, public water suppliers, whatever the feds don't use, you can use that year based on cutting it up by the percentage of what you had as the group. Okay? So out of the 12,431 acre-feet, we get a certain percentage of that came out to 404.42. You don't count two different ones on boron, and I forgot the other one. I think it's desert that you don't count in that group, and we all get a split. LA County, Fort Sill, Little Rock, Palmdale, Lancaster, we all split it up. That's the Federal Reserve water. That's not going to be, at this point, it's not allowed to be carried over. Some of the public water suppliers like LA County are making the argument that if we don't use it this year, we should be able to carry it over to next year. The argument is right now, no, we can't. So at this point, I'm calculating it as no, we're not going to be able to use it next year, in 2019. This year, yes?
If LA County doesn't use their water, are they going to divide it up amongst the other water producers?
No, because that becomes carryover for them.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're going to just, Adam's going to keep it in the ground until the day that they actually need it, and then they can extract it. And someday it'll be stored water.
Are we talking about 5,000 acre-feet roughly
Oh,
from the federal government?
yeah, I think it's actually like 66 or something. They don't use very much, and they divide it. This year, in 2019, we're going to get, I think it's like
165?
No, I think it was like 214, 224, something around there. They haven't we're requesting that they do the calculation again, and so we get a more accurate number. I have the number that they first gave us.
Their use is less than 2,000 a year right
Yeah,
now.
I have a spreadsheet. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I'll tell you, I have a spreadsheet here that I'm going to show you that shows at least what the initial I talked before about. That's buying AVAC water. If we buy an acre-foot of AVAC water, it comes down here, it goes through the Rosamond treatment plant, it goes to our tanks. We send that water out to the people. We get 39% next.
They're not using the Rosamond treatment plant anymore, they're actually just banking it and then we pump it out of the ground and they call it clean at that point?
No, there's other convolutions and there's the other arguments for that. So what AVAC did, if you want to just digress a little bit. So AVAC this last year, delivered us water, right? But they delivered it, they still delivered it through the Rosamond plant when we took it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it still comes through the turnout
It
at
still
the
comes through the
Rosamond
turnout
plant.
there. So when we got it, of course, we had so many acre feet, and let me explain, on the imported water returns, it's coming up in the next layer here, let me see, return flows, 39%. The return flows are calculated 39% on a 5-year average. So you average the past 5 years, and then, go by 39%. And that's our return flow. So the more imported water you use, the more return flow. So as the spreadsheets go, I calculated it out like 20 years from now. As we go, we start using some of our water bank water. All of a sudden, we have more imported water. Our return flow number starts going up almost to the thousands because we're averaging like 1,000 acre feet a year that we're taking. So the imported water, what AVAC did is they said, we delivered water to you, and then when it came time, they said, well, wait a minute, we get the return flows. I know. We get the return flows because we gave you our groundwater. And I said, I was the first one that said it, now Chad's chiming in, say, but you charged me the full price for aqueduct water. I said, if you're gonna charge me, if you're gonna say I don't get the return flows, you better lower the price. So they're working on that right now to figure out how they're gonna do that.
In fact, back 25 years or so ago, they did have a separate price for, and where they used that argument to say, okay, we're selling this at a lower price, so we get
It all come out, financially come out the same. If I'm buying 581 right now? Or 560, I think it's 561 for an acre foot of potable water, right? Or they send me potable well water. That well water didn't cost them that much to bring down the aqueduct. It's not state water project water. But then I'm not getting the return flows, so they're just gonna calculate, it's all gonna work out in the wash. How much is that 0.39% worth to me, right? And so, but they're working on that, so we called them on it.
The almost almost all of the water that they deliver is imported water, right?
Anymore, yeah.
Yes and no,
They
because
bought a couple ranches, and they do have, I guess, the right to say that that's how much.
they have groundwater, and they were pumping, this past couple.
But when you pay for the imported water, you should get the return.
Absolutely, that's what we said, and they went, oh, okay, and so they're working on that. So we have return flows, and that's 39% we get for return flows averaged over 5 years. Stored water, okay? So return flows, if we don't pump our return flows next year, in 2019, we don't have any this year, we don't pump well, we do have some this year, but if we don't pump it this year, it turns into carryover. And that stays as carryover again, the clock ticks for 10 years for that molecules, and in 10 years it turns into stored water. Once it's stored water, we can pump it whenever we want. And remember, that's water that's already in the ground, so we get full credit for it. And the last is transferred water, which I'm working on right now. When I get the deals done, I'll tell you about it, but one of them is like when we got Exhibit 4 water, that's transferred water. There's a lot of them, and that's in perpetuity though. There's a lot of people that are coming to me that say, hey, I'm going to use my water this year. Do you want it? They're calling it quote-unquote lease, which means a one-year transfer. So there's a water district that has to use all aqueduct water now. They have 77 acre-feet of water a year. They don't want to sell those rights because they might need it someday, but they want to sign a contract that we purchase that water every year, and I'm saying I want to purchase it as carryover water starting January 1st, and they're also going to have return.
January 1st, 2019.
Correct. Well, it would be hard for January 1st, 2018.
Why not?
Yeah, backdated. But, and then they're going to have, because they're buying all state water project water, they have return flows they can't use. So that's about 54 acre-feet of return flows. So I said, I'll buy that too. So that's going to be considered transferred water. And what I'm betting on is...
That's going to start to ramp up a lot.
Right, there's going to be a lot, and it's going to be a lot cheaper too, because everybody's going to want to lease it, and nobody's, I'm like one of the few people that can buy it. You know, Quartz Hill can buy some, the farmers are doing their own deal. So, but here's the catch with transferred water. You can get transferred water, but you have to go through the Watermaster, and the Watermaster engineer has to decide that there is no material harm if you extract it from where we're at. So our water bank water, if I want to pump it from my wells, I'm in the process of writing she's getting the forms done finally. So we'll get the forms done, and I'll say, I have 3,700 acre-feet of water in the water bank. I'm going to extract it from my wells. I can't go over 3,000 acre-feet a year anywhere with my wells. Is it okay? She's going to look at it and say, yeah, there's no material harm. You got the go on that. Same with the 150 acre-feet. Same with any transferred water that we buy. It's exactly the same thing. So you have to have a movement of extraction, and also you have to have the transfer itself.
That's one of the things that they're pushing the board to get that done.
Right, Gary's Van Dam's pushing that because some of the farmers want to transfer their water rights right now. They want to make some money and they want to do some other farming. So, and then replacement water, that's the bad one, okay? If we extract more than our production right, not counting all of these, we can pump all these, right? So I can pump 3,700 acre-feet next year of my stored water. But if I get to the point where I don't have any of these other ones, and all I have is 404 acre-feet, and I forget to buy state water project water, they slap me, and now I have to pay for replacement water, which is, I pay AVAC I think it's $411 right now. I pay AVAC $411. They take water project water, spread it on the water bank, it goes into the ground, and nobody gets the return flows. So of course, it behooves me to buy an acre-foot of water ahead of time. It costs me a little bit more, but I get the return flows the next year. So, the Excel sheet. So I did this, I'm gonna put my glasses on this. So I did this spreadsheet that I did over the years. So this is like what year 18 looks like. So I have this so it calculates everything automatically, and I have it going, I don't know, I have it going until the year 2028, something like that. So I can play with this every single year. So you can see, if I have, right now I have 404.42 of acre-feet there. I have 150 acre-feet of transferred 214.7 of Federal Reserve. This year we have 18.57. My reduction rate is I can pump 2,559.72, okay, total. So as I move this, I can pick and choose what I want. I have water bank water. And then down here, I have the total amount that I have available. This is my estimate. So if I use all these three here first, I need 1,788 acre feet. So I can take it from return flows, I can take it from the water bank water, and then if I take it from the water bank water, see if you look at 2019 shows, my return flow is 9.48, right? But if I went back and said, well, you know what, I'm just going to take, I'm going to take 1,700 acre feet from my return flows instead. Okay, so now from my water bank water, that was imported water. So now when I go to 2019, now my return flows are 142.08 because it took 1,700 and it's averaging it. So we have this so we can play with it, so we can see, you know, play the different scenarios. Hey, if I have transferred water, do I want to use the federal water first? Well, of course, I got to use my water rights first, but then do I want to pump from my water bank water? Or do I want to try to get transferred water? Which plays out the best for me, not only for having more water in the future, how far, so I played with this at one time, going out like 10 years. How far do I have to go until I have to buy more AVAC water? That's what I'm thinking of. Because I think, you know, our plan is go as long as we can self-sufficient, buying as little AVAC water as we can. We're going to get imported water return flows from our water bank water. So if we keep on playing that game, it builds up, it builds up, it builds up until we get to a point. And then hopefully, water rights, transferred water, all that, the prices come down because there's so much water on the market, it's going to go for cheaper. You know, it's already coming down quite a bit. So, okay, so that's sort of just a brief on all the different types of water and...
In that particular scenario, you're assuming we only get 404 acre feet of water. We actually get 2,500 acre feet for this next year, is that right?
Correct, correct. In fact, I just realized I was tweaking this last night, and so this is actually wrong. So if you went to 2018, it would be 2559.72 minus 404.42. And that's what I call reduction right. So that's water above my production right up to the amount that I have to subtract every year that I don't have to pay replenishment water on. And that's what the judgment says. Every year you reduce the delta from your start number to your finish number. The delta is you subtract that, divide by 6, subtract that amount, and then that gives me what I can pump this year. So I forgot to subtract the 404.42 because then that would be all the water that I would have.
Well, right, basically, this year, if we only produce out of the ground 2,500 acre feet, and we have a right to produce 2,559 acre feet, don't we have 59 acre feet to carry over?
No, because we had that argument and they said no. Because that was one of the big things. I said, wait a minute. Well, my argument is I said, well, I didn't pump my 404 first. I pumped my reduction water. Oh, they didn't buy that argument, but I tried. All I'm doing all these creative things. I'm just trying to, where's the loopholes?
So that's what they're doing, is saying we have to pump the 404 first.
We have to pump our 404.42 before they start counting the reduction water. So basically, I forgot to subtract, so sorry about that. So it's like 21, something like that, or whatever it would be, is what I call reduction right. There's no name for it in the judgment. It's just, it's the water that you've reduced that you can pump above your rights without paying without paying the penalty, right? And so we can still produce that. But I can still, you know, so my mind is the 150 acre feet of transferred water, I'm not going to pump that. I'm going to leave that instead. I have it up there right now, it's pumping it, but I'm going to pump that because I'm going to pump my reduction water first. The federal water, unless they say we can carry it over, I'm going to pump my federal water first because I'm going to lose it next year. But LA County actually, they might be filing something, they're looking at that, and but they're talking to the feds because the feds are involved in, you have to talk to them first before you sit there and say you're going to carry over. There's some arguments on either side. So that's all these different types of water, and the spreadsheets. In fact, Brad and I were talking today, can we use our finance software or whatever, and he said just use Excel, because we have to keep track of all this. If I buy transferred water from somebody and it's carryover water, the clock ticks on it. How many acre feet is ticking? So every year, 2018, how much carryover do I have from 2018? The clock's ticking. In 2019. And it says, first in, first out. So you're looking at that, how can you get to the point where then it actually turns into stored water? So far, those are the only ones. But, we're looking at a well over in the Fremont Basin if we can, so, and then we can pump as much as we want. And it's imported water, so we get 39% return flow. And also if we use our secondary water for crops or alfalfa, that would be a return flow too, because that water is not calculated into the negative safe yield of what goes back in the ground, because they knew it was just being evaporated. So any other questions on that? Did it confuse you more? It's still convoluted.
Still a work in progress, we're looking forward to the 5th edition, is that right? Next?
Yeah, that's right.
Now, you do have this where you can print it out so you can look at it.
I can give you the PowerPoint. You can look at the PowerPoint. These spreadsheets, I can give you the spreadsheets, also as Excel. Or you can, if you want them as a PDF, I can give them to you as a PDF too. Same with the PowerPoint. I can give you the PowerPoint as a PDF. Unless you want me to do a...
Otherwise, this is copyrighted.
Okay.
He's looking for a hard copy.
Hard copy is what I'm looking for.
Okay. I can do a PDF for dummies too. But.
Just don't have, have Jenna send it to me, because Lizette's computer doesn't like it.
Okay, no, I'll have the PowerPoint printed out as a PDF and give you a couple of sheets of the spreadsheet so you can sort of see what the numbers are looking like.
Any other questions for Mr. Smith? Thank you, Mike.
Well,
All right, moving on to new business. MB1, authorize Director McKay to submit for reimbursement for attending the GADEA meeting on March 29th. Mr. Smith.
yes, Mr. McKay went to this and he asked to have it, it wasn't pre-approved and there wasn't time. We had that meeting that was skipped the last time, so we put it on this agenda for you.
Do you move the books?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Glennon, second by Mr. Lansdowne.
There was one time when the whole board used to go to Gavia. It's a good thing to be aware of. Yeah.
All right. Any comments from the public? Any comments from the board? All those in favor? Aye. Abstain.
Unanimous and passed.
Unanimous. MB2, adopt resolution 2018-06, authorizing an agreement of UMP-QUA Bank to participate in the CSDA District Purchasing Card Program.
You notice the Director of Administration, who never wants to give any presentation, I forgot to put her name on here. This is her presentation, so she's got here.
All right. What's that?
That is Umpqua.
So CSDA has terminated their purchasing program with Bank of the West, and they were able to secure another program with Umpqua Bank that will allow us to continue to earn cash back in rebates. And so part of their process is that we have to be before the board and ask for permission, and then once you grant us this permission, based on what's on the resolution, we can proceed with the application and the underwriting process.
Is this a debit card or a credit card?
It's a credit card, no debit.
Is it better than the Wells Fargo one we keep on getting late charges on?
We're actually looking at switching over from Wells Fargo and switching to Umpqua. Wells Fargo doesn't currently offer us any rebates.
And it's saying the quicker charge is $39.
Yes, but Umpqua does, so that's something that we will be exploring as we go through the application process.
Now, Wells Fargo might always come back and make us a deal we can't refuse, but we would.
Who provides our bank right now? Is it Wells Fargo?
Wells Fargo. But you remember, we're on an analyzed account, and so they have this threshold of things they can give us to a certain point to make us happy, so, because they like to have that credit card service. So we'll see. But this is a good deal.
Yeah, we did go back and speak to Bank of the West to see if they were willing to offer us anything similar or even better, and unfortunately they're saying no. They're actually saying you should go with Umpqua because they are offering a better deal, something that we,
It saves us money.
exactly.
I personally have dealt with Umpqua Bank, and they were a good bank. I'll make a motion.
All right.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Williford, second by Mr. Lansdowne. It is a resolution, so can we have a roll call vote?
Vice President Wilford?
Before you call for the vote. Anyone in the public like to comment? With that, go ahead with the roll call vote.
Vice President Williford?
Aye.
Director Lansdowne? Board.
Aye.
Director Glennon.
Yes.
Director McKay.
Yes.
President Schimmelbecker.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
All right, moving on to MD3, approve the salary schedule. Mr. Smith.
Yes, the board directed us to come back, I got back from our attorney, our labor attorney, and besides the positions that Mr. McKay had listed that we talked about that we're never gonna hire, we're not gonna hire an engineer and these other people that you wanna take them out, they were vacant. There were 2 positions that we could not take off, so they still appear on here. And that's the GIS tech and the IT tech. So those are still in the schedule, and this is the salary schedule with the other positions removed.
Any comments from the board?
The GIS tech is listed where?
It's not listed.
Oh, it's not
It's out.
listed. Okay, the IT tech.
Oh, no, the GIS is in,
It's
yes.
on there.
I'm sorry, yeah, no, that was the opposite. The GIS tech is, look, engineering GIS CAD technician. About the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 one down.
Okay, there it is.
And then the IT technician is almost towards the bottom above the finance assistant.
Okay.
And you wanna do what with these two? Eliminate them?
Well, they-
No, they have to stay in.
They have to
This
stay.
reflects,
This, with the direction of the board, this salary schedule looks the way that you wanted it. With every position that we have to leave in there, taking up.
all right, and I guess, does the general manager have any comments on whether this is,
This is fine, those positions that were removed, I'm not gonna be hiring them. I don't hire an engineer, I like our engineering firm, you know, it's just like anything else, you know, we have straddling, right? And straddling gives us, when Allison doesn't know anything, which is not very often, then I get Joe Adams and wherever he lives now in Chicago, or I don't know where he lives a ways away. Or we used to get Colin, or we have Jeff Dinkin for employment, and we used to have Doug when he was with Straddling for water, but now he's separate, so they have a wealth. And so our engineer, you know, like we needed a hydrogeologist, well, they have a hydrogeologist in San Francisco. We need a guy who's a sewer expert, they got one in San Diego. So it gives us a little bit more. I would never hire an engineer that just comes on unless we're doing like major projects, and we're not. And same with HR, she's doing HR, IT is also out of the contract services. So if we ever decide to take IT in-house, we'll have to come back and make an IT manager for them.
the project that we're doing as far as hooking up those 8 people in the arsenic grant, is that considered a major project?
That's done, no, that's done, it's done differently. It's not somebody that we would hire.
He says it's contracted out right now.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's on here as an IT technician.
IT technician, correct.
Yes.
That one, our attorney says you could not remove. That's what our employment attorney said, because that would be part of the bargaining unit.
Okay.
So there was 2 of them that you wanted taken out that I said are left in there. The engineering GIS person was one of them that you said you take out. Our attorney says you cannot remove that one. The IT assistant or tech cannot be removed. Those 2 positions have to be left in. All the other positions that you listed at the special meeting are taken out.
Okay, how about this administrative assistant?
What's that? That's what? No, but that's a bargaining unit. There's a number of vacant positions here right now. But those are bargaining unit people, like I said before, if you have, I do not have an OT, I don't have an operator trainee right now. But you can't take it out, one, because it's a bargaining unit one, but you wouldn't want to take it out anyway, because that ties our hands. If I have somebody, which I just discussed before, if I have an operator 2 that quits, I can't replace an operator 2, operator 1. We've taken on people and said, you know what, we'll just hire this new person, they seem like they're pretty well trained, so they're an operator 1. But that's a bargaining unit position, that was a position that's already been in there. So he said, I gave it to Dinkin, and he said, you take out everything that you said except those 2. And leave everything else in.
Mr. Wolford, do you have any comments?
No,
Anything to add?
not at this time.
Any comments from the public? No comments from the public. I'll entertain a motion to approve MD3.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. McKay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wolford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, moving on to director's comments and reports. We'll start with Mr. Glenn.
I guess this is a question, but you can just there any movement on, returning the park to the county? Have you got any feedback from the county or?
Zach and I talked this morning a little bit. Kern County's been going through that lawsuit and making new districts and all that kind of stuff. He's been pretty tied up with that. He has talked to staff, and he told me, I said, it's been over a month, you know, and I need some movement, and he says he's setting up a meeting with staff with me. I've talked to Allison about it, what our position would be. We're gonna, at the worst case scenario, we're gonna tell them it's yours July 1st. And then we're gonna cut off everything, water, electricity.
But we wanna work with them if we.
We wanna work with them, yeah, but I mean, that worst case scenario, Allison will produce a quick claim that we'll submit to them, to the county, and the other paperwork and everything, but Zach's working with me, so it's a little bit slower.
And then the other one, I talked about determining the percent that we're gonna pay back of free money or general fund money towards the recreation debt. You know, I would like to, at some point, to actually set a percent, so that when the money comes in.
What's that?
Part of the, is gonna be through the budget process, and I'm doing that analysis now to determine what our free revenues are gonna be, and how to deal with all those other things that come through the park fund.
Okay.
So we'll be having those discussions. If you would like to have more detailed discussions, one-on-one, we'd be happy to do that as well, but it will be part of the.
It's part of the, it'll be part of the budget process and the discussion.
Of how we're
Yes,
gonna
Mr.
deal with that.
He's gonna finish it.
Okay, I'm sorry. If I could say one thing on that,
Yeah.
when we get to that point, we talk about that. That ad valorem money, if it's not gonna be used for opening the pool and doing that, and then we're free from parks, remember, that's discretionary money. There had been a discussion one time about, can you give a senior discount to seniors? Well, under 218, you can't. It has to all be the same. But with ad valorem money, you could always give a senior discount, a payback. You could say, we're gonna give, you know, $10 on the base rate to seniors that qualify. There's things you can do with that, and that's all part of this budget process. What do you wanna do in the future?
Yeah.
You know, so do you wanna, how much money do you wanna pay towards the park debt, and what do you wanna do with the extra discretionary funds?
We had the Willow Springs Water Bank meeting this last week. The precipitation is getting almost close to the average level, and maybe it's in another couple, if we have another couple storms before the season's out, will maybe be an average year, not a dry year, but not a wet year at all, but an average year. Metropolitan Board agreed to bankroll the water fix. I think you've read that in the paper. The twin tunnels, it wasn't unanimous, but their board voted to spend the money to do that. I think that the problem will be that when they do that, then they will own the water that comes through there to a degree, or have control over it. Kern County has partnered up with Willow Springs Water Bank and is taking the lead with the FEMA money grant for the water bank, which is really helpful. And then the $15 million grant is coming up on April the 24th. The allocation for the funding will be at the end of July. And with Kern County kind of getting behind our backs, that will help considerably, I think. And then the Aqua Conference is coming up next month in May.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Mr. McKay? Okay, thing I'd like to see on the agenda is discussion on getting rid of the land that we own, that the parks bought, and put that money back against the debt that we owe.
Yeah, well, I've been in the process, it's sort of been a little protracted, of, we had several properties appraised. And so not only doing that, but, you know, like the community center, remember we have another piece that was given to us in West Park. I had said before that I'm trying to take that piece of property and swap it with the developer that wants to build a single-family home there. And then and he has a piece of commercial property right next to our piece of commercial property, so we can sell that. And that would actually be discretionary money, and you could use that to pay towards the park.
Off of the land that we own now, off of.
On Feld site.
Fell site, by Tropico.
Yep.
Mojave Tropico.
Yep. We can do the appraisals on that, and
This land right here next to us,
Oh, that one, that commercial one?
yeah, that was bought by the park.
What's that? It's by the water.
Yeah,
And
you
that-
kind of on where the money came from.
Absolutely, yeah, we can search that and everything.
That's water.
Yeah, the water fund, and that's commercial property that could be really valuable once this corner starts building up, and so.
Yeah, most property that's bought was never bought by the park. Property
Yeah,
that was
so
given
we
to
can
us.
we can research that of what property, I know that the properties that were given to us, you know, as like West Park, it was given to us as part of the parks. That other property was given to us and you use the community building as, you know, sort of parks and community and everything. So, yeah, we can look at all those.
Well, Kern County, they gave us the old libraries, one on Diamond Street. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay. But it's still, it's discretionary money.
Anything else, Mr. McKay? Yes, I attended the AVAC board meeting on the 10th, and Bank Water right now, they have 108,582 acre feet of water in the ground. And they're expecting or anticipating a 5% increase in their allotment of state water, which would take them to 25%. That's the end of my report.
Mr. Lansdowne.
Thank you, Mr. President Singlehegger. As I mentioned earlier, this meeting, if we could have the, as an agenda item next time, lowering or at least not raising rates on July 1st, 2018 as a discussion item and or action item.
Well, it would have to be discussion, because you'd have to give us direction first, then we'd have to, specific direction on what, and we'd have to come back with a report and do the math and and give you all that.
Okay,
So-
one of the things I'd like for you, if you're gonna
Yes, sir.
do that, is look at what the rate structure is. Look on the out years, when we're gonna have to buy water, where are we gonna get the money from to buy the water?
That's all,
Change
yes,
the rate
absolutely.
structure.
That was that graph that you saw.
Yes,
You know, that, and I'll go over it all that, there's this crossing,
yeah.
you know, that it gets to that point, and that was the rate stabilization. That we, you know, we set it a certain way so it would go, but we'll cover all
And
of
we
it.
have a reserve fund for rate stabilization, is that right?
Yes, now rate stabilization fund is funded through the increases, the smaller increases because of it being in place. So the rate study that we presented to you last year, the year before, already incorporates the use of that stabilization.
And we're at 37% funded now, is that right?
You'd have to look at the report.
Yeah, it's a lot, it's a little bit more complicated than just that. So we'll give you the whole picture, the big picture, the 5-year picture.
Anything else, Mr. Lansdowne?
That's it?
Mr. Wilford?
Was at the same meeting with Byron, and he's pretty much stole my thunder.
All right. General Counsel update.
Good job getting your Form 700s in, thank you.
Thank you. General Manager.
I think we covered most of the water bank stuff. I'm going to, I'll be in Victorville tomorrow. We're meeting with Lahawton, and we have our new engineers coming up, and Brock's going with me. We're talking about the feasibility study that was out there. We had a very, very good meeting that I told you about. We had one of the top PhDs in sanitation. He's written like about 38 textbooks. He's one of them that came on our team from UC Davis. They call him Dr. T. It's hard to pronounce. Our previous engineer had made numerous mistakes. And so we're working with the water boards now and say we need a new timetable. It looks like we're going to go in the direction of farming instead of the wetlands, because the stuff they calculated just isn't going to work. It wasn't going to work. It was also going to cost us a lot of money. So once we get more details of that, we're going to meet with them tomorrow and say basically, you know, hey, we need a new timetable. This is what we're working on. But it looks really good. But we had Brock was at the meeting, John Hatton and myself, and it was a great think tank. We came up with like 9 different alternatives, and we narrowed it down to one, what's going to cost us the least up front, and what's going to cost us the least in the future of operating. So it's good. So we're going to meet with them tomorrow. Watermaster meeting next week, and like I said, Los Angeles City is still fighting us. And he came out with Stan Powell came out with a memo again today at about 3 o'clock, and I was on the phone with the attorneys and, you know, with LA County and our attorney and with a couple of the general managers. And so we're putting together something. We'll probably have to have an emergency phone call before that meeting. So we'll see how it goes.
And LA County's, or LA City's position is they own the Palmdale Regional Airport and they want to use, they're a seller of water. They basically have excess water they want to sell, is that right?
Which makes an interesting idea, right?
Okay.
That the people who need the water, they don't want us to have as much water as we think we need. So maybe we have to buy it from them, but I'm not saying that.
I kind of sense they're bullying a little bit, but whenever we go back to court, they
lose.
lose, yeah.
And we don't want to go back to court. We thought it looked like the Watermaster, as you remember I said last time, we won with the Watermaster, but Stan's still coming back with the same argument. It says in the judgment that our pre-production number is what was produced for beneficial use, excluding return flows. They turned that into a subtraction problem, saying, well, we have to take your return flows and subtract them out. And we're saying, no, that wasn't return flows, that was native groundwater we pumped, period, the end. Quartz Hill ended up with no starting number. LA County ended up with no starting number. So at the Watermaster meeting that Ed and Byron was at, the Watermaster said, no, forget that return flow number, work on that averaging 2011, 2012. Stan came out today and said, no, that's incorrect, you're supposed to subtract it out, the judge said so. And what happens is the judge and Allison could say what this means, is the motion in front of the judge was, do we get a ramp down number? And the answer was yes. One of the comments he made was, you need to calculate that based on what the judgment says of, to the extent that return flows are incorporated, right? Stan, who's an attorney, says the judge gave us direction on how to calculate it. And that's what you call dicta.
Indeed.
And it wasn't in front of the judge. And so if we have to go back, we'll put it in front of the judge. And he's probably gonna, find in our favor again. We're trying to stay out of there. The Watermaster seems, to say, all 5 members, like public water suppliers, come back with your plan, and we're giving them what we provided them this morning. Chad Reed wrote it out for all of us, is that we're using the same 2011, 2012 numbers averaging, but Quartz Hill will get the cessation number that they said they should be entitled to, that the Watermaster engineer and the Watermaster attorney said was okay. So everybody's the same, we'll get the same 2,900 acre feet that we first calculated, because, and I forgot what the guy's last name is, but Dennis, who was the expert during the trial, calculated the effect on the basin if everybody ramped down, and he used the 2011, 2012 numbers to average to have the start number to ramp down. And that's why we're saying that shows exactly what we should have got. So we'll be in front of the Watermaster on Wednesday. We'll see what happens.
My thought is if we end up going back to the judge, besides, it'd be clear that we were right, I think. And he may say, why don't you get an engineer that maybe there'll be a suggestion to the Watermaster to get an engineer.
Yeah, I talked on the phone last week about some other issues. And I think once we get past these major ones, the other ones that are coming up are tweakable, and I think they're okay. But this was a major one. I mean, we can't end up getting nothing. And so we won pretty strongly. So Ed was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the judge came down pretty hard on him. Yep.
Is he just trying to outlive the judge and get another judge?
Comar's in retirement.
I know.
He comes back just for these
Well,
hearings.
not the judge.
This is what's keeping him alive. And you know what, Stan, LA City, the attorney, and it's not an LA City attorney, it's a private attorney a firm that's been hired. They were not even part of the formation of the settlement. And that's what the judge, remember the judge said, it wasn't Stan that was in front of him, it was the other LA City attorney, and the judge said to him, he said, counsel, he goes, were you at trial? He goes, I read the he goes, no. Were you at trial? And he said, no. He goes, how can you say, and the judge came down really hard on him, how can you say this and you weren't even there? And that's what the public water suppliers attorneys have been saying the same thing, saying, our attorneys were there, they know why this was crafted the way it was, but we'll get through this.
All right. Anything for the Assistant General Manager?
No, he had to take the day off today, so he's doing good.
Director of Finance, Mr. Rockabye.
No additional updates at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Director of Public Works, Brock.
No updates.
No updates.
I forgot to scratch her from the agenda, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Director of Administration, any further comments?
Nothing else to report.
All right, with that, we'll be adjourned.